Welcome to Perimenopausal Athletes and Beyond, a masterclass series bringing together experts in mindsets, nutrition, training, and recovery. My name is Tenille Hoogland. I am your host, and I have the incredible Brett Norris. Welcome, Brett. I'm so thrilled that you said yes and you're here with us today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Thanks for having me on. And what an introduction. It's incredible. So, thank you.
Yeah, normally what I do is I go in and I share people's resume. Just so people know, okay, well, where are we coming at? But I want to do something a little different with you. And that is, I actually just want to hear your story, because what we're talking today about is, and the title of your talk is self-rediscovery through exercise, a mind-body approach. And where we're going, everybody, is we're looking at awareness. And and I just was mentioning before we went on that this is the first step to my ACIT strategy, very love my little acronym of awareness, connection, execute action, and then with intention and targeted. So how did you come to this incredible work and focus of this, and share with us your story?
So it goes back a while. So I'm going to skip a few years at the start because they're kind of irrelevant to the story, I guess. But essentially, I got into the industry in 2006 as a very typical personal trainer in a gym in a pharmaceutical company. And it wasn't actually until a couple of years later, playing football, I tore my ACL, ligaments within my knee. And the amazing thing about that was that I got to go through this journey of rehab as the patient and not as the coach. And so I started seeing maybe little pitfalls and understand the journey that a client would actually go through, and trying not to get too bogged down with, I'm going through this recovery, and try and see it as, what can I learn from it and how can I inspire others that are going through the same. So I went from being sort of like Brett, the PT, who will just train anyone for general fitness, to all of a sudden I became the knee guy because I had a knee injury, right? Yeah. And so I had a bunch of people coming to me and say, hey, I hear you're the knee guy. And that started from there. That's what got me into injuries and movement. Fast forward a few years, or maybe a year or so, I started learning from the likes of Gray Cook and getting into this arena, Gary Gray, people like this, and started learning more about mobility and stability and movement patterns. And then go forward another few years from that. And I re-tore my ACL again for a second time. I went through the journey of it again with so much more knowledge. I actually done all my own rehab without any physio. And what I noticed the second time around, I was a bit older, was the psychological journey behind injury that no one had prepared me for. I was in my late 20s. Basically, my football career had come to an end because of it. I was living in Singapore at the time, and it was just hell. And it allowed me to understand that when you're going to go through an injury, you're going to go through a trauma, people are going to teach you very much from a physical perspective of what you got to go through. But no one's sitting there and teaching you awareness to your mind and how that's going to affect your body and trying to get you back psychologically. Mm-hmm. And so with that experience, when I was training people, I started to realize, I started to see, probably for my own bias, that people were coming to me with old injuries, but they were, obviously the injury had healed, but their mind hadn't. And the way that they'd seen their body was that it was still broken, it was still fragile. They'd sat with a doctor or a consultant at the age of 27. Their doctor had said, never run again, don't lift weights, don't do this. I'm sure we've all heard the story. And so then you see this person who, 5 years after an injury, they still don't believe in themselves. They still don't believe they can run. They still don't believe they can lift weights. They can't do anything. And you very much find a person that would describe themselves as fragile, as broken, who needs fixing. Like, they go to a trainer to get fixed. They don't go to a trainer to, like, can you help me move better, or can you get me back to run, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And that really hit a note in me. Like, I'm very empathetic, and having that, being able to feel my own journey, I felt I needed to do something bigger than just personal training people. And so that's where the whole awareness thing came to, in the sense of, I want people to start becoming aware of how the thoughts that they're having, the way that they're seeing the body, the attachments that they've made to the words that have been said to them, the attachment that they've been made to the movements that they're trying to do that hurt, or the way that their body moves. And so the awareness thing really kicked in at that point, because I just thought it was missing. And then when you talk to people who have long-term injuries, long-term pain, I just feel like their knowledge of their body is missing. And then I started to think to myself, well, when we go to school, we have the opportunity to learn to read and write, and that's called literacy. Yeah. We don't have the opportunity to learn about our body. And so movement literacy would be something that's pretty cool, right? Like actually knowing, understanding how this thing moves, how the mind and body connects. And it's not two different entities, right? That your mind and body don't exist in, like two separate things. And then I just kept seeing that in people. So I think we spoke about it before when we originally spoke on email, that like, I don't work with people at the point of the initial injury. I work with them sometimes 25 years later, if you can believe. And that injury has stolen their life. It might have taken them through a divorce. It might have lost their identity. It might have cost them their job. It might have taken their fitness career away from them. And the reward of being able to get somebody to rediscover themselves again, and I use exercise as a vehicle to do that, is incredible. So essentially, I do what I do today because of my injuries, and within those injuries as well, I went through chronic depression, and that taught me a hell of a lot about like how your mind can make you feel like you're going cuckoo sometimes, you know, or it can liberate you. So it's incredibly rewarding, and I still feel that when people come to me, they come to me because they've got a shoulder problem, let's say, but within the first 10 minutes of that session, they're really geared up to, they can see the limitations that have been placed on them, maybe by their doctor, maybe by themselves, maybe by believing into the fact that there's, well, my nan had a bad knee, so I've got to live with a bad knee, and getting them through that journey, really. So that's how it came to be. And I'm currently living and working in Dubai. And with that setup, I went through, I got a job in Dubai in 2018. And I was training a lot of people. I was working for someone as employed, and I was training a lot of people. I don't know how many sessions I'd done, 2,500 sessions in about 18 months. It was a lot. And it was just seeing that amount of people just further gave weight to this perception that I had of what I was seeing in people. And what I noticed working in gyms, the beauty of working in gyms is you get to see coaches, you get to see clients like, all the time. I'm not stuck away in like my own clinic where I just see one person at a time. And what I'd get often, wherever I'd go in a gym, I'd be the movement guy. And so, which I always thought was funny, right? It's like, I don't know, like move it from training someone, I need to know how they move, right? So yeah. I was always classed as like the movement guy. And it's like, oh, hey, Brett knows how to get people moving. And so what I would get, I'd get called over by a coach and they'd say, hey, Mary has a sore knee. Do you know why? And I'm thinking, well, we don't know anything about Mary at this point, right? So let's sit Mary down and talk to her and just listen, and we'll just shut our mouths and just listen to Mary, and she'll give us all the clues, and then we can just piece together the information. Well, what I felt was going on in the missing link is that people were seeing Mary with a sore knee and going, oh, you're lacking internal rotation, or your foot doesn't move well, or your breathing's up. And it's like, let's learn a bit more about this individual first. And then when you allow that individual to feel heard, the game changes, because people in this life just are not listened to. So, sorry, and that's a lot.
No, I am just like, honestly, Brett, I have goosebumps. Like this is you're really challenging the notion of, you're really challenging the notion and challenging us here that listening is like, okay, once again, just like, we started the series with Charlotte Tharup and how she says, just be like, first, like, just feel your body, just see what's happening. And again, we're now completing the series with you saying, let's hear, let's listen, let's slow down. It's not about doing always. It's about this coming together and having somebody that is going to hear you and hear yourself for the first time, maybe since something traumatic happened, and has, created a story or a block or whatever. So let's go there. So you referred to, this sense of, okay, so it's this knee. So a typical personal, I don't want to say typical, but a personal trainer brought in, they are supposed to get you moving. That's their job. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
What your angle and through that's a lot of personal training and seeing is, okay, I want to hear a person. So tell me a little bit more. Will you tell me a little bit more about that process of, or even if you have a case study or something that you can share about how do you go there, and how do you first of all establish the trust, because that's a relationship. And so if you're a coach listening, I'll just ask, there's a lot of coaches listening to this and trying to understand, okay, well, how do I be better for my athletes? Because that's why we're here together in this series, because we want to do better for our athletes, or we want to be better athletes ourselves. So how do we enter in?
I think it starts with yourself, right? Like, for myself, it's almost an obsession of, I'm going to sound like a weirdo, but it's an obsession of just, I love human behavior. I love just listening to people. When I am around, so I've spent a lot of time, because of traveling the world, I spent a lot of time around ladies, not in that sense, just in the sense of groups of friends. And they talk about listening so much. Hey, I went on this date with a guy and I just felt he wasn't listening to me. Or I said this, I said, oh, what did I say? And they can't repeat it back to me. Listening. It breaks down relationships. It breaks down client and trainers, communication. It all comes back to that. So it's almost like you go through this kind of like a master's degree of like learning that listening is so important. And I'm making that relevant to ladies. Sorry, that might come across a little bit sexist, but making relevant to ladies because obviously that's a big part of why we're here today. So, and so in terms of the trust, I feel that there's a massive difference between listening to reply and listening to understand. And people can feel it. I'm a massive believer in energy. Like, you can feel when your energy is not quite there. You can feel when you're trusted. And the other amazing thing is that often this was happening in the middle of a gym, of a performance gym. Yeah. And because there was nowhere to do a consultation, right? Because they'd never had a trainer in there that would just talk to people. So you'd often have people in tears, breaking down. It was horrible. You'd take them out to the canteen, you'd take them outside, go for a walk. But the trust thing's a really good point. And I would honestly say it's not something that I've put my finger on and I just know. I just am myself, but I allow people to be themselves as well. So I think there's a couple of keys. You want to make someone aware that there's no judgment, which is hard. You want to make someone aware that when we walk into a gym, especially a performance gym, for us guys, it's just a gym. For those guys, it's so intimidating, right? They're in their workout gear anyway. They're looking around, they're seeing everyone looks like an athlete. And then all of a sudden they meet this bloke from Essex who wants to get them to talk about their feelings. Like, that must be like, oh, this is just too much, right?
That's so perfect, because you're right. Like, when we walk into gyms, and I mean, this is relatively new for females. We walk into gyms and the first thing is like, oh my goodness, everybody looks like they know what they're doing. Even if they don't know what they're doing, they're pretending that they look like they know what they're doing. Yeah,
of course, 100%. And so I think that removing the judgment, just making people feel that they're in a spot where it's not being judgment. So take off your trainer's cap, just be a human being to another human being. That's the best thing you can do. And I get goosebumps every time I read it. There's a quote by Robin Williams, and it says, if you treat the disease, sometimes you'll win, sometimes you lose. If you treat the person, you'll win every time, no matter the outcome. And it is just true, right? Like, you just be another human being for somebody, right? Don't try to jump in and I know this and I can just listen to that person, because the reality of life is the chance are their husband, their wife, their kids, their teacher, their coach, whoever, isn't giving them that time and space to be listened to. Maybe they never got that as a kid. So just listen. They will show you everything, and it makes then your next step so much easier, right? And I think it's Simon Sinek that says, it's a sign of a good leader, or like a cheat code for a leader, is that you listen to everyone in the room. You get all the good ideas, and then you're the last one to speak, right? So you sound like a genius because you've just listened to everyone else. Yeah, try not to sort of jump in and speak first. Just allow people to be, and also if people don't all open up, give them space, give them time. Don't try and force it on them. And you know, it will happen. Sometimes it doesn't, and it doesn't. But when it does, it's beautiful. And yeah, it's just it's so powerful. So already in that first session, so by the end of the first session, the feedback that I mainly get is one about how I've made that person feel, rather than maybe oh, I've been able to do some lunges today, or I've been able to do some squats today. And that for me is everything, because if I can get a person to feel better, I know they're going to be excited to come back. But there's also, I want that human connection. I don't just want you to be able to like get a PB. I want you to feel like there's another human being in the world that actually cares about you without any kind of expectation of anything from you. I know obviously that person's paying me, but that's not why I'm doing it. Yeah, so I just think it's massive, and I think it's a what's the word? I think it's a part of coaching and training that's not necessarily given into us. Like, we're not really taught about it when we come through. And dare I say, maybe you might see, I'm 37 now, so maybe because I'm getting older, I'm leaning towards that way. Maybe I wouldn't have done this when I was 21.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an age thing. I don't know, but listening is vital.
So there's a couple things I really want to just say again. You are listening not to reply, but to understand. So that's one thing. I just want to like hone in on that. That's freaking awesome. Being present with the person who's in front of you, completely present. There's nothing else except for that person. When we are giving our full attention and ourselves and taking in and receiving them, it is an incredible connection that you can create. One thing that pops into my mind is, you know, in the medical system, we are, you know, doctors are so challenged. They have to learn so much and respond to so much. It's one of the breakdown points. And the you know, they get their 5 minutes with their patient, and there's no way you can get to know that person and the story. And this is the very spot where our whole healthcare system is breaking down. And what I love about what you're saying is that we as trainers and as coaches, we have to be as aware of our own, this piece that you're bringing us. And what does that relationship look like? And how do we build ourselves into this? Where I'd like to go now and delve into a little bit deeper is this knowingness. Glennon Doyle, in her book Untamed, talks about our knowingness, our knowing as females, that we know things. And what you're offering is that the story of the body is the story of the person as well. And they have so much to offer you in terms of how to guide you as a trainer in how to move and how to feel and how to come into your body. Can you talk a little bit more about that connection between the person, their story, their trauma, and then elevating it, you know, them to be confident in and learning how to move again without that story?
Yeah, great question. So I think, again, starting with we just touched on, like, understand yourself to understand others. And you made a very good point. I'm going to come into it in a sec, but you made a very good point, which was like allowing them to lead you. And that's a massive thing that people sometimes understand about a leader. A leader isn't in front, they're behind, right? You're being guided by the people. So 100% with that. I think what I try to focus on with that knowingness and it's a really hard thing for a coach, I feel anyway, is that there's so many perceptions and beliefs and mindsets that you have to try to understand. And I'm just like any other human being. I have my own biases. And I think that if you can just listen to someone and you can try to understand where they are coming from. So you want to understand and give them the space and give them the acknowledgement that you're hearing them, and you're not judging their perceptions and their beliefs. And then you want to, in order to take them forwards, just show them something different. So the massive bridge there, what I would say is these limitations that you're going to see within their mindsets and their limitations in their words. So when I'm in a consultation with somebody, I'm not really listening to the knee, the ankle, the hip. I'm kind of listening to it, but I'm really pinning in on words. What words do they keep using? And they might keep saying like weakness. They might keep saying, oh, I'm old. They might keep mentioning arthritis. They might keep mentioning fragility, whatever it is. And so then trying to understand the meaning that they've attached to these words, because that's the bridge, right? And then you want to, in that session, whether it's through, I do something with their breath, I do something with their movement, I show them just to be able to better pronate and supinate a foot, just to help their body feel like it's getting unlocked. And then all of a sudden, you can start to say, the thing I say is like, that's not bad for a lady who didn't have any belief in herself, is it? And they go like, yeah, that's amazing. You start to empower them. So for me, it's how you get to that empowerment to take somebody up a level, right? And something I make people very aware of in that first session is when you're with me, this is a safe zone, and I'm not going to let you come down into these limited beliefs. I'm going to be there with you. And by the end of every session, you're going to leave feeling empowered and better in yourself. So that bridge between where you are now and where you've got to get to, I have to guide you at that point to show you that it is safe to move further. It is safe to, move beyond your current perception of yourself. And ultimately, it is just a perception. So something that I often say to my clients is that everyone has a reality, right? And that is led off of your beliefs and your perceptions. So as your beliefs and perceptions evolve, so will your reality and your reality of yourself. So hopefully that answers your question in terms of that's the bridge.
Something that just keeps on coming up for me is this idea of, it's again, something that has been weaving through. And so having you, tie it together, through the ending here is the infinite possibility. And as athletes in perimenopause and beyond, we have heard, like, just think of the pressures of what we've been hearing. First of all, we started with Dr. Carla, and it was like, we're deficient of estrogen. Well, we are not deficient. There is nothing deficient about us. We are absolutely perfect in all body and in form. We have, we've come from an era or a time in which going to the gym that's not what ladies did, and we're breaking through. We didn't even run in the Boston Marathon until, however, we didn't do marathons. We didn't do this. It wasn't part of our culture. It wasn't part of what was acceptable. We're breaking through all these blocks. And we still have these histories and these stories that we have to become consciousness of, and what you're saying is, what is the language that, and what I love about what you want to really point to is, what is the language that we are using on ourselves? And then you tie it into, so that's the awareness. That's the whole point of an awareness.
You're writing a book for yourself, right? And that book can change. It can have many chapters. And if you keep, it's going to teach you a different way to write, right? Just to get a different story,
Yeah. So find your language, try to hear your language, that we are having this idea of, my business coach. I think I even said this, Christina Giandelli said, we don't have blocks, we only have perceptions of blocks. Right?
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel so free when people say this. I'm like, I want to grab a coffee and talk to you more. It just ignites me. Yes, you are infinite, the infinite mind for sure. And touching on that notion of you are the placebo, right? You are whatever you believe you are, that's what you will be, So and that's how you act. So I love that. I love what you're saying.
Yeah. So let's get into let's dig in a little bit further again, and let's talk about some of the struggles that let's get specific on how do we look at some of the challenges of that you work with athletes in perimenopause and beyond. That's your real target. And so help us feel like, oh, that's me too. And where is the possibility for me? What are some of the common things that you're seeing for us, and where we can say, okay, that's me. And now I have hope because I know that Brett has seen
Yeah.
how many thousands of people in this situation and have moved them beyond.
Yeah, mate, again, yeah, your question is amazing. Yeah, so I go through a couple of limitations I see in people. Labeling is a massive one, right? Labeling is a massive one. And so you've then got, you put a barrier in front of yourself, a perceived barrier, as we just talked about, right? So it's very key when I meet a client that I don't pay any attention to labels. People come in, MRI scans, labels. I'm not paying any attention to it. I just want to listen to you. I just want to watch you move. Let me see what you can do, what you can't do. Let me see what you believe you can do and can't do. And let's work with that. And then if we really aren't getting anywhere, maybe we need to have a deeper dive into these labels that have been given, right? But before that, let's see how far we can go. And usually
can you tell us what, like, just give us a couple of examples of labels so we can really grasp onto that?
Yeah, of course. So labels that I work with, so arthritis is a big one. It hasn't been diagnosed. It's been in the sense that they've gone to a doctor, maybe they've had an old ankle injury, and they said, you're going to get arthritis. And they've just gone and attached that to the fact that a few generations before them have had arthritis, and now I'm going to get it, right? So that's what I deal with massively. Yeah. Posture is another big one. Okay, so I deal with posture all the time. People saying, like, especially someone might send their husband in or a wife in, they're like, oh, sort their posture out, they've got lazy posture or whatever. And I'm like, all right, okay, cool. So to give people hope, what I would say is that a massive mistake that people make is, whether it be, so I generally work with joint pain, okay? I generally work with joint pain, because remember, this is years after they've had an injury that's been seen to by a physio or a doctor. And so, yeah, so they'll come in for the specific joint pain, and they'll say to me, like, I can't go up the stairs, I can't run, I can't do this. And I say, okay, cool. So tell me some limitations that you believe about your body. And they'll say, like, oh, what do you mean by that? And I say, okay, let's start. Knees, should they go over your toes? And they're like, no. Is it bad if your knee moves inwards? Yes. Okay, have you ever walked up a step before? Yeah. Where did your knee go? Come with me. I'll take them up to a step and say, just watch me go on this step. Where's my knee go? Over your toes. Stand in front of me. Where's the knee? In a bit. Yes, I'm pronating my foot, right? Okay, cool. So that's a natural movement for the body, right? So can we get rid of that for a second? I'm going to show you how you can carefully do it. Okay, when you are exercising, what are you doing with your core? I'm bracing it all the time. Yeah. Okay, cool. But if you brace those muscles between your pelvis and your ribs at the front, how are they supposed to move? Ah, good point. Right, cool. So if they're braced all the time, can you breathe? Let me give you an exercise, right? I want you to brace your core, because I'm just then showing them, demonstrating. I want to break your labels. I'm like a boxer. I've got you in the corner. I'm like, you are not coming out until you've told me these labels don't exist. And so they're like, oh, wow, now I can see what I'm able to breathe now. I'm able to expand and compress. And so really my first go-to is, and giving people hope, is in that just understanding that those labels that have been given to you and been put on you don't actually exist. And like arthritis is an amazing one. Like people talk about back pain all the time, lower back pain, right? And just the way that people look at the problem is the biggest problem, right? So the way people look at their problem is their biggest problem. The second part is, and this was the part that I just forgot I was going to say, is that people associate length of problem with severity of problem. So my job very often is very easy, right? Is actually, I meet lots of people and I say, you're an easy case for me. People come in and they say, you've never worked with anyone like me before. I tell you what, I've been to see physios, doctors, well, you'll never get me right. And I'm like, okay, where's your problem? My right ankle, for instance. We have a look around all their body. I'm like, okay, well, actually it's linking back to the fact that you don't move very well through your left side of your body, your left hip, you can't pronate through your left foot. And they're like, oh, it's on the other side of my body. And I'm like, yes. Has anyone ever looked at your body as a whole? No. Okay, cool. So we're just really then getting into that notion of where I believe my problem is, arthritis of my shoulder, for instance, my pain in my lower back. And that's all they focus on. So then again, the language comes back in and they keep saying bad back. They don't want to go for a hike. They won't go for a walk on the beach with their wife or their husband because they're worried about their feet hurting or their back hurting. And And it just limits them because it's just a story that they just automatically are programmed to use, right? And you will see it. You'll see, like, I've looked into your bio. You're incredible, right? You would have seen people like 20 years into exercise still wearing a knee sleeve, right? And you're like, oh, well, you're right. Like, when did you do that? And they'll be like, oh, back in like 1994, right? But they're using it just because it's like a psychological guard, right? And they'll still tell you that they've got a knee problem, yet they're out there running doing a triathlon, right? Like, you're amazing. So yes, so it's more labels around, as I said, around that. A main one that I can think of is arthritis. Just people come in and say, I've got bad knees, I've got bad ankles, I've got flat feet, for instance. And my last point on that is that for myself as a coach, I'm just looking at the shapes that you can get into and the shapes that you can't get into. And that comes into a bit that I really want to talk to you about, which is finding our center. And if we can't find our perception of center, if we can't find our actual center, we're going to get very, very stuck when it comes to our movement.
Sensor. Okay, so you're going to have to...
Center, sorry. The center of our body.
Yeah. Oh, the center of our body. Ah, okay.
The center of our body. Yeah.
Yes, because it everything comes out, right? Everything, all of our extremities come out of our core, and so yeah.
Well, it's the center of every joint in your body, in the sense of, like, muscles need to lengthen before they shorten, right?
Okay.
And so muscles need to lengthen before they shorten. So little things like this, right? Like when you're in center or neutral, no joint is open or closed. So if I'm like this, the joints on my spine, at the front of my spine, are closed. The joints are open at the back. If I find neutral, they're neither open or closed either side. So when you take someone through an exercise, maybe their feet, they'll say to you, God, I feel so mellow. My legs feel so relaxed. Or, you know, when you get that feeling, there's like a toothache in your body, it just won't go. That back problem won't go. That hip pain won't go. Whatever that is, you just feel like low energy all the time. Like something in your body, you need to stretch all the time. The chances are your perception of center isn't actually true. Like, I see people over here all the time, or they're rotated. And so, yeah, that's just, again, comes into awareness and helping people find their center so they can navigate around it, not so they can live within it.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go a little bit more now into that. I mean, that is so freaking cool what you just said. And I love it. So thank you. Because I immediately went into center, but you're talking about it in such a more expansive way. And so thank you for offering that to me and to helping me understand that too. So let's go into, okay, now the mind and the body and that real connection. So you have really helped us understand in terms of the mind, the limiting beliefs, and what else are, is there anything else for us to understand here that you wanted to share specifically on that mind-body connection? And is there anything else that you want to say?
I would say people want to be aware of, especially after trauma, how they touch themselves. I've got a really cool story on this. It's going to blow your mind. How they touch themselves, the words they use, how people around them guard them. Remember that, because that is stored. Your nervous system does not forget that, right? And there's a reason, like, you go back to an old house, you stand in that house and you just feelings come back, right? It's a memory of your nervous system. And so the mind, in terms of, like what I said, is your mind limiting your body in the sense of what you've actually attached to this story that has happened. And that could be through the thoughts that you have, and also through many, many different senses: sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of hearing, sense of touch. Yes, and little things. I'll give you an example so people can actually get a practical takeaway of this. So a few years ago, I come across a guy called Lorimer Moseley, who's a neurologist, I believe. It's a neurologist, Australian guy. And he was saying that he was talking about nociception. And nociception is basically like it's a sensory mechanism where, so his story was that he was walking through the outback in Australia and he walked through grass and got bit by a snake. He jumped, he yelped, and then he went on. The next time he was walking through long grass, something touched his ankle and he yelped and he jumped, but it was just a blade of grass, it wasn't a snake. But his brain had seen it as a threat, right? And so when you start to see the brain's primary role is survival, and so it's doing everything to protect you, stop looking at your body as though it's a problem and start looking that that's your body's best solution right now. Be its friend and try and find something better, because we are always attacking ourselves, right? Whether it's from the way we look, the way we stand, the way we do a lunge, the way we run, the way we feel. Like, just give yourself a break, man. That's your body is just trying to help you out right now. That is its best solution for you right now, because it's just trying to maybe conserve energy in the way you move, or trying to just help you survive. It doesn't really prioritize your function, it prioritizes your survival. So remembering sensations, remembering how people would have made you feel, remembering how exercise made you feel, or crossing that finish line made you feel. These are going to have a remarkable effect on your performance. And that's why when you talk about the mind, you have to talk about environments, and putting yourself in good environments that help you grow is massive. And you would have talked to people who are going to talk to you about the gut, who are going to talk to you about the mind, who are going to talk, they're all going to mention environments. They're so key, they're so key. So yeah, it's massive. The story I wanted to very quickly share with you is from a lady I met in Dubai, and she phoned me up and she said, I can't turn right. And I was like, okay. But she had shared a story with me a few months before, and she told me she'd had a major car crash many years before that. And I always remember, because I'm always listening to people, that the car had rolled over and she got out and she held her elbow and she got out of the car. And I said, okay. And I said to her, when you had your car accident, what side of the car did you get hit from? I said, the right side of my car. And I said, okay, cool. And this won't make too much sense to people listening, because I think, how does this work? But what we've got to understand is the nervous system never forgets. Everything is kind of fresh, right? And so something can come up, trigger you at any point, and you can get all sorts of weird feelings and emotions and outputs. And so what I had to do was I had to get her to replay that accident in her mind, which, made sure that she was okay to do that. And change the story, change the outcome, make sure it was a sunny day, she's listening to nice music, the accident never happened. This is going to sound bonkers. And then she's in her living room, she's going, I can turn, right? And so she's like completely guarded. Another story of the same lady is that she was in my gym and she would go down into a lunge but couldn't get back up again. And again, remembering what she had said, I just got her to place her hand on her elbow and she could get up as if she was strong. And I noticed something you've been mentioning on Instagram is like redefining strength. And strength is granted to you by your nervous system, right? It is granted to you by your nervous system. So if you can make your nervous system feel safe, and it might not make any sense, it might sound absolute bonkers, chances are you're going to have a potential of experiencing more strength. It will only be for that moment, but you'll experience more strength. So bringing safety to the nervous system, that in itself is a huge connection between mind and body. To give you examples of that, it's really, people would have to experience that firsthand. I think it's something that you can understand when you feel it, right? It's people can talk to you till you're blue in the face. You're like, I still can't, doesn't make any sense to me. I can't get an idea about it. Once you feel it, you're like, you'll never forget it.
Mm-hmm. Again, like, I know this is you haven't listened to the interview with Charlotte Thara, but she talks about safety as well. And in a very different way, but she, your body is home. And you are safe in your home, and to recognize and feel your body, and you are safe in your body. And we, athletes in perimenopause and beyond, you're so right. You're bringing us into an awareness of how we are fighting. So fighting symptoms, fighting age, fighting, falling apart, fighting joint pain, fighting. And it doesn't feel very safe until we actually put ourselves and our mind and our body in saying you are okay and you're safe. And I love it how that is that connection between the nervous system and how we respond. And this is all, I mean, there's so many hormonal pieces that are coming into this in terms of cortisol levels, et cetera. Like, I mean, it's just such a physiological thing that is starting from a different spot for you. And it doesn't sound bonkers at all, by the way. It doesn't sound
it just sounds, when I'm saying these things sometimes, I sound like I've had about 7 pints and I'm just making things up. It just sounds crazy, right? When I say these stories, it's just like, God, this sounds like I'm cooking. But the body is just, it's amazing in terms of how it stores things and remembers things. And the brain is a predictive organ, right? So it's going to work based on what you've experienced and been fed before. And it's going to, just a quick thing, sorry, just to say, is that what I say to my clients, you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain, right? So we could all, 3 of us could be in both of us could be in a room together and we see exactly the same thing, but we have very different experiences and take very different things, from that experience. So yeah.
One of the most amazing things that you're offering, and I just had one of my athletes was just hit by a car.
Wow.
And so she is in this spot and of injury, and a ligament might have pulled. She had race plans. She was so excited. And immediately, we want to go into action of what you can do. And that's a positive thing. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. But I think where you're helping me see as a coach and what you're offering to us is maybe not right away, I don't know, but that trauma that, we share injury. I mean, most of us, many of us have felt pain or felt things in our body. It might not be an injury. It might be just pain, like arthritis or whatever, is to really come present and understanding first, before we go forward, what does that look like? And how does that feel? And how do we move from that spot right there? And what does it mean? And does it mean anything? And that is a different starting point than, okay, what can we do? Don't limit your possibilities of action, because like immediately I want to go into, but you can do this. And she can do that. And she can do that. But there's also something that you're offering in such a different and a tangible way. And I think that it's the pause, it's the being present, it's the how do we feel? What is the story? And because for every thing that happens, like just getting back onto that bike and having that experience, okay, now I'm going onto the road. How do I want to retell my story here? How am I going to feel safe?
Yeah, amazing. And that's it's as well where assessments come in. Like I see a lot of talk in the industry about assessments being nothing more than, I don't know if this is a British term or not, it's definitely not a nice term, but it gets said is like putting lipstick on a pig, as we'd say in Britain. And the assessments kind of get poo-pooed a lot of the time, like in the sense of they're just for show. And I think if you are saying that, maybe you don't know what you're looking for. And I think with an assessment, it's definitely for a couple of things. It's to think of like, what's the strategy going to be between now and where this person wants to go? And also it's their learning time. It's a time when they're not thinking they're coming in to go and exercise, that they're just going to go through and just experience their body. You've got a really nice moment there, and you can educate this person and you can take some of those barriers down and you can show them their capabilities. And then after that, bringing in a step-by-step process. So something I do with all my clients is, because when I went through my injuries, I got really frustrated with paying out so much money to consultants to be there for 5 minutes. I was kind of almost trying to diagnose myself and just get there kind of, that's what it is. All right, brilliant. And I never want my clients to go through that. So actually what I offer my clients is I say, come through for your assessment. You do 3 sessions after that. Just give me enough time to see if I can work with you. If you don't want to work with me, or I feel that you need someone else, you don't pay. If you do want to continue with me, we settle up and we move on, because I don't want you wasting an investment with me, right? I'm really hot on that. And those first 3 sessions are going to help me understand and communicate a step-by-step process from where you are today to whatever your goal was, which hopefully exceeds pain. Hopefully it's more about getting you moving better, feeling better, getting back on the bike, getting back to the race line, wherever it is. and setting you in that direction. So assessments are a huge part of the awareness as well. You know, it's massive. So assessment is really key.
I really appreciate that you have shared that with us, because it is where do we start? Where do we start here? And where is our story going to start? And how does that story look? And, you know, where do we pause to listen? And that's how we come into, and that's how you come into relationship with the clients that you serve. And I'm so glad that you're doing your work. I'm so glad I've met you. I have one final question that I'm asking all speakers. And I don't know how you're going to answer this, because your point. Well, I'm just going to ask it to you and then you can share. So what I'm asking, is there one moment in time? Is there one experience? Is there one place that you can actually kind of physically be in that said, aha, this is my purpose. This is my focus. This is what I need to do. And I don't know at which point you kind of have come into, this is what I'm going to do now, or this is the mind-body connection. I am an awareness coach. I am going to build your awareness. How would you want to answer that?
So the first time I knew that this was definitely something I wanted to do was I worked with a guy with hip dysplasia, Stuart, I know you won't mind me saying his name, 2012, and he'd suffered with it for 25 years. And he'd been to physios, he'd been to Harley Street, which is a huge place in very, very top doctors and people in London. And he'd been everywhere, spent thousands and thousands of pounds trying to sort this out. And I helped him in 5 sessions over 11 weeks. I actually felt sorry for him, because at the time I was charging about $40 an hour or something. So he got sorted out for about $200. He was well over the moon. And that was the first thing that I thought, damn, I can like really help people, because the way people are looking at the bodies is maybe we can be improved. So that was my first sort of like golden moment of like, wow, maybe I can help people. The awareness thing really, to be honest, was that I had this constant conversation with clients who were saying to me, Brett, you're not a personal trainer. I'm trying to tell my friends what you do, and I can't explain why it is, because you're kind of like, I feel like you're kind of like a mental therapist and a physio and a personal trainer. And I was like, I don't know what to call myself. So I've had so many conversations, and then this has just been going on and on and on of like what to call myself. And so I thought I'll call myself something that an awareness coach, basically, to be completely honest with you, that when someone says, what do you do? And I say, I'm an awareness coach, it will strike a conversation. Yeah. And then it will lead into it, you know? And it gets me on the right track, because if anyone ever thought I was like wrongly termed as like a physio, I'd be out for a dinner, I'd get everyone asking me about their shoulder problems, their knee problems. But I want to talk to people about mindsets and get onto that. So awareness coach for me is nothing more than a conversation opener, to be honest with you.
It's so perfect.
To communicate my why, that's basically it.
And I'm so glad that you came into the space with Stuart, and thank you, Stuart, for not giving up. Not giving up. Stuart did not give up after 25 years. What a testament to him, and to a journey that you began with him, and to see something. So thank you, Stuart. And thank you, Brett, for joining us and sharing a whole other way of being, and coaching too, and how we can be in relationship with our body and in mind and wholeness. And what a beautiful conversation. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.